An island of small humans. Let's begin our family tour on the small island of Flores in what is today Indonesia. About 1,000,000 years ago, the sea level around Flores Island was lower. Many places that are now covered by water were dry land back then. So Flores was much closer to the mainland. Some curious humans and other animals, like elephants, found it easy to cross over to the island. But when the sea rose, they couldn't get back to the mainland and were stuck on the island. Flores is a small island, and there wasn't much to eat there. The biggest people and the biggest elephants, who needed a lot of food, died first. The smaller ones, who needed less food, survived. When a small man and a small woman had babies together, they had even smaller babies. Of course, not all the babies were exactly the same size. Some were small, some even smaller. Because there still wasn't much food, it was again the smaller ones who survived. And that's how, from generation to generation, both the people and the elephants of Flores Island became smaller and smaller. Adult Floresians were no more than 3 feet tall and weighed about 25 kilograms, but they knew how to use tools and even hunt the small elephants. The way these humans and elephants gradually became smaller is an example of evolution. Evolution explains not only where the small people and elephants of Flores Island came from, but where all animals and plants came from. It explains why giraffes have such long necks, why foxes are so smart, and why skunks smell so terrible. When giraffes compete to eat the leaves on trees, the giraffe with the longest neck can reach the highest leaves. She gets more food, so she has more babies. And her babies will also have long necks. When foxes compete to hunt prey, the smartest foxes are the most successful. So they have more cubs, and their cubs are smart too. And when the fox tries to hunt skunks, the fox will probably be disgusted by the smelliest skunk and leave him alone. So the smelliest skunk will survive and make super stinky baby skunks. It's important to remember that evolution takes many generations. It took a long time for skunks to become really smelly, and it also took thousands of years for the humans and elephants on Flores Island to become small. It didn't happen overnight, like in a fairy tale, when someone drinks a magic potion and immediately becomes tiny, or when a wizard casts a spell and shazam, a prince turns into a frog. In fact, it took so much time that nobody noticed the changes. With every generation, the humans and elephants became a little smaller. And since nobody lived for 1,000 years, nobody realized what was happening. This is one of the big laws of life. Small changes that nobody notices accumulate over time and become big changes. It happens not only with evolution, but with many other things in nature. If you watch water drip onto a solid rock, you might think that the rock is much stronger than the water. The water just flows off the rock without making any difference. But if you could come back thousands of years later, you would see that the water has made a deep hole in the rock. Each single drop makes only a tiny difference, but after millions of drops, it turns out that persistent water is stronger than solid rock. Or think about growing up. You never see yourself growing when you look in the mirror. You could stand there for an hour, looking very carefully, but you still wouldn't see yourself get taller or your hair get longer. If you look in the mirror every morning, you probably look exactly like yesterday, but in 20 years, you will look completely different. How does that work? Is there a special day when you take a magic pill, go to sleep, and wake up as an adult? No, you change a little every day, and over the years, these tiny changes add up to the grown-up you. This is how we grow up. This is how water can make a hole in a rock. And this is how the humans on Flores Island became small. Slowly, step by step. The small humans lived on Flores for many years, but the catastrophe that killed all the other kinds of humans didn't spare them. So, until recently, nobody knew that they ever existed. Well, almost nobody. Some people on Flores told stories about bands of small humans who once lived deep in the jungle. The locals called them the Ibu Gogo, which means grandma eats all, because the little humans in these stories would eat absolutely anything. But most people just dismissed the stories as fairy tales. And then a few years ago, archaeologists started digging inside a cave on Flores Island. Archaeologists are scientists who dig in all kinds of places, hoping to find clues about the distant past. What they found in that cave on Flores Island was fascinating. Very old stone tools, the remains of a campfire, some elephant bones, and the skeletons of several small humans who lived on the island more than 50,000 years ago. At first, the archaeologists thought these were the skeletons of children, but it turned out they were those of adults. So the Ibu Gogo perhaps weren't a fairy tale.